Hi, I'm Pete. Welcome back to my channel. Today, we're back in the workshop and we're starting a new project. I recently completed this 4-piece entertainment center for a brand new client. This video series details the project build from start to finish. So, let's get started and let's have some fun. This entertainment center project will consist of 4 pieces: a center television cabinet, left and right bookcases, and a light bridge spanning the bookcases. This first video will detail the build of the center television cabinet. The plywood for this project just got delivered, so let's check it out and see how it looks. I special ordered this red oak plywood to guarantee a high-grade veneer on both the front and back. Upon inspection, the veneer on these panels looks really good. I'm also very happy to see there are very few voids in the core plies. Well, my design is complete and approved by the client, so let's get started cutting some wood. The cabinetry will be constructed of 3/4 inch red oak plywood with a 1/4 inch red oak plywood back. I will be building the cabinet to these dimensions, so let's get started cutting the 6 pieces that make up the core of the cabinet. Step 1 is to square up 2 edges on each sheet of plywood. This is a very important step, as I've learned the hard way that you can never assume that the plywood sheets come perfectly square from the factory. Now that we have a perfectly square corner on each sheet, we can start cutting our panels. I cut the cabinet's top, bottom, left and right sides to length, then rip all 4 pieces to the final depth of 16 inches. The cabinet back will rest in a rabbet. We'll get that done at the router table. It's always a good idea to dial in your setup by making multiple test cuts. After a few passes and some final adjustments, it's time to cut rabbets in the top, bottom, and sides of the cabinet. With the rabbets cut, I can now measure for the dimensions for the 2 center dividers. These divider panels will be supporting some movable shelves on shelf pins, so let's drill those holes next. Take your time with this step. It's critically important that all the shelf pin holes align. Next, I drill pocket holes on the hidden faces of the top and bottom panels. With the project moving along, it was time to get the client to decide on a stain color for the cabinets. The client liked the look of the golden oak, but they wanted the grain to stand out more. So I experimented a little, adding some darker stain to the golden oak. I found that 1 part darker stain with 2 parts golden oak really brought out the grain. In the end, the client decided that they liked the 2 parts golden oak with the 1 part provincial. So this is what we're going to stain the cabinets. We're going to let the mineral spirits dry off a bit, maybe give it a couple hours, then we'll come back and we're going to tape off areas where we're going to be doing gluing. The idea here is that we're going to pre-finish the panels with stain and polyurethane before assembling. I marked the position of the center dividers on the inside face of the top and bottom panels. I'll tape off these areas before applying stain and polyurethane. Okay, these panels are all stained, and I gotta say, I'm very happy with the way they turned out. The color looks great. So we'll let them sit overnight to dry, and then tomorrow we'll start with 3 coats of polyurethane. After 3 coats of poly, it's time to start assembly. We'll begin by attaching the 2 center dividers to the top and bottom panels. The cabinet sides will be attached with pocket hole screws and glue. I find these clamps from Craig to be essential when utilizing pocket hole screws for cabinet construction. With the center cabinet core structure now completed, we can now focus on building the face frame. The face frames for this project will be made by taking a 1x6 of red oak and ripping it down to 1 3/4 inch strips. While ripping the red oak for these face frames, I noticed I was getting some blade marks and burn marks on the pieces. Setting up the router table as a joiner is the perfect way to clean up these edges. The face frame will need to fit flush to the sides of the cabinet, so exact measurements and precise cutting is essential. After numerous adjustments and cuts, the face frame is fitting flush with the edge of the cabinet. The bottom of the face frame will feature a cutout. I'll trace it out on both sides using this template. With the face frame top, bottom, and sides assembled, it's time to do a dry test fit. It's all looking good, so now it's time to cut the pieces to cover the edges of the dividers. The final face frame pieces are installed. Now it's time to do one final test fit. Everything lines up, so it's time for sanding and finishing. While staining the face frame, now's a good time to also stain the cabinet doors to make sure they're a good match. I think that's pretty spot on. After stain, it's once again time for 3 coats of polyurethane. I find rubbing down with steel wool in between coats gives a nice smooth finish. I let the poly set up overnight, and now it's time to install the face frame. The face frame is attached with glue on the vertical sections and a whole bunch of pocket hole screws on the top and bottom. The glued sections are secured with clamps, and I allow a couple hours for the glue to set up. And here we are a couple hours later with the clamps removed, looking good. I now turn my attention to cutting the top. The top is also 3/4 inch red oak plywood. The plywood edges will be covered with an iron-on edge banding. It's now time to polyurethane the top. I've already put a couple of coats down, and I brought it in from my workshop in the garage because there's a lot of dust floating around there, and I really want this to be nice and smooth. So let's go ahead and put a 3rd coat on this, and maybe a 4th if it needs it. Well, it's a new day, and letting it sit overnight, the third coat feels really nice and smooth. But I'm thinking I may give it a fourth coat because there's going to be a television sitting on top of this, and I want to give it some good protection. So let's go ahead and put the fourth coat down, and then we'll call it a day. I install the top with glue and screwing from underneath within the cabinet. I clamp the top in place to allow the glue to set up. Now it's time to cut and fabricate the back panel. I drill some wire management holes with a 1.5-inch Forstner bit. These 1.5-inch wire grommets are a perfect fit. The back panel is attached with glue and 3/4-inch staples. Before I staple, I mark the location of the center dividers. With the back installed, I now fabricate 4 legs with adjustable feet. With the feet installed, I can now concentrate on the final details of installing the cabinet doors. And there you have it. The center cabinet is now complete. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit like and please remember to subscribe. And don't forget to look for my follow-up videos where I complete this project. Thanks again for watching.